Commander Jake Morrison stood perfectly still on the bridge of his starship called the Revenant, and he watched the holographic display flicker with data that made his heart race faster than it had in years. The ship had been traveling through deep space for 7 long months, and every member of his crew was tired and restless. But today everything changed, because the sensors had found something that nobody expected to see. Lieutenant Amy Foster sat at her station with her hands moving quickly across the glowing controls, and her face showed confusion mixed with excitement. "Sir, we have arrived at the coordinates, but something is very wrong here," she said without looking up from her screen. "The debris field ahead is massive, but the readings make no sense at all." Commander Morrison walked closer to her station and studied the data carefully. "What kind of readings are you getting, Lieutenant?" he asked in a calm voice, even though his mind was racing with possibilities. Amy touched several buttons and a new image appeared on the main screen. "The matter here has been compressed in a way that should be impossible," she explained. "It looks like someone took an entire solar system and crushed it down into almost nothing, then scattered the pieces across this whole sector." The bridge became very quiet as everyone processed what they were hearing. Dr. Lisa Hayes, who served as the chief scientist, rushed onto the bridge carrying her datapad and looking alarmed. "Commander, I have been analyzing the energy signatures from that debris field, and I need to show you something important," she said quickly. Morrison nodded and gestured for her to continue. Lisa brought up several graphs and charts on the holographic display. "These readings are not natural formations," she stated firmly. "Whatever destroyed this solar system was done deliberately, and with incredible precision." She zoomed in on specific data points. Someone wanted to erase every single trace of this system's existence, and they nearly succeeded. First Officer Danny Cooper, who had been standing near the back of the bridge, moved forward to join the conversation. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" he asked quietly. Could this really be Earth? Morrison felt a cold sensation spread through his chest. For 3,000 years, humanity had been scattered across the galaxy, living in hidden colonies and always running from the forces that hunted them. The stories passed down through generations all told the same tale about how the Galactic Council had destroyed their homeworld and tried to wipe out the entire human species. Most people thought these stories were just legends or exaggerated myths, but now they were standing at the exact coordinates, where Earth should have been. "Begin full sensor sweeps of the entire area," Morrison ordered. "I want every piece of data we can gather about what happened here." He turned to Danny. "Send encrypted messages to all the other fleet commanders, and tell them we may have found something significant." The crew worked in focused silence for the next 2 hours while their scanners examined every fragment of compressed matter floating in the void. Amy suddenly sat up straight in her chair. "Commander, I am detecting something unusual," she called out. "There is a signal coming from deep within the debris field." Morrison moved to stand behind her station. "Can you identify the source?" Amy worked her controls with practiced efficiency. "It appears to be some kind of data beacon," she replied. "The technology is extremely old, but it is still transmitting on a frequency that our systems can detect." Lisa joined them and immediately began running analysis programs. "This is incredible," she whispered. "That beacon has been broadcasting for at least 3,000 years, possibly longer." "Can you access the data?" Morrison asked urgently. Lisa's fingers flew across her keyboard as she worked to crack the ancient encryption. "It will take a few minutes, but I think I can break through the security protocols," she said. The entire bridge crew waited anxiously while Lisa worked. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she looked up with tears in her eyes. "I have it," she announced. "It is a message from Earth, from before the destruction." Morrison felt his throat tighten. "Play it," he commanded. The speakers crackled with static, and then a woman's voice filled the bridge. The voice was clear and strong, despite the passage of millennia. "This is Director Helen Cross of the Earth Defense Network." The recording began. "If anyone is receiving this transmission, then you already know what has happened to our world." There was a brief pause. "The Galactic Council has deemed humanity too dangerous to be allowed. To exist, the voice continued. Our crime was not aggression or violence, but progress and curiosity. We advanced our technology faster than they believed was safe. We asked questions they did not want answered. We refused to accept the limitations they placed on all developing civilizations. They saw us as a threat to their carefully maintained order, and so they decided to erase us from the galaxy. Morrison clenched his fists as he listened, but we anticipated this possibility. Helen Cross continued. We have hidden resources throughout the galaxy, including seed colonies, scientific archives, and technology that will ensure the survival of our species. Find these hidden sites, unite the scattered remnants of humanity, grow strong, and learn everything you can. And when you are finally ready, make them remember exactly why they feared us in the first place. The message ended with coordinates for several hidden locations. The bridge remained silent for several long moments after. The recording finished, Morrison looked around at his crew and saw the same mixture of emotions on every face. Anger at what had been done to their ancestors, sadness for the lost homeworld, but also determination and hope, because they now knew the truth. Amy was the first to speak. Commander, those coordinates the message mentioned, she said. I am already plotting courses to each location. Several of them are within a few weeks' travel from our current position. Morrison nodded slowly as he made his decision. Send word to all human colonies that we can safely contact, he ordered. Tell them we have found Earth and we have found proof of what really happened. He straightened his shoulders and looked at each member of his crew. For 3,000 years our people have been hiding and running and barely surviving, he said firmly. That ends today. We are going to gather every human ship, every colony, and every resource we have hidden. We are going to grow strong enough that nobody will ever be able to do this to us again. He turned back to the view screen, showing the scattered remains of Earth. Set course for the nearest coordinates. From that message he commanded. It is time to bring our people together. It is time to go home. As the Revenant turned away from the debris field and jumped into faster-than-light travel, Morrison remained on the bridge staring at the stars. He thought about all the generations who had lived and died without knowing the truth about Earth. He thought about the children being born in hidden colonies who deserved better than a life spent running and hiding. Most of all, he thought about the message from Helen Cross and her final words about making the Council remember why they had feared humanity. We will remember, he whispered to himself, and we will make sure everyone knows what you did. 6 months had passed since Jake Morrison discovered the ruins of Earth, and now he stood in the command center of Sanctuary Station, watching representatives from 12 different human colonies arrive one by one. The station itself was hidden, deep inside a nebula that scrambled most sensor readings, making it the perfect location for this secret meeting. The circular conference room was simple but functional, with a large holographic projector in the center and chairs arranged around it for all the leaders who were risking everything just by coming here. Captain Kyle Bennett was the first to speak after everyone had settled into their seats. He commanded the mining operations on Veridan Prime, where thousands of humans worked, extracting valuable minerals from asteroid fields. Commander Morrison, I have to be honest with you, Kyle said carefully. My people have survived for 3,000 years by staying quiet and keeping our heads down. Now you are asking us to stand up and reveal ourselves to the entire galaxy. Are you sure this is the right move? Jake understood his concerns perfectly. I know what I am asking is dangerous, he replied, but we cannot hide forever. The Council destroyed Earth because they feared what we might become. If we stay hidden, then they won. Colonel Nina Walsh, who led the agricultural settlements in the Kepler expanse, crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair. Even if we wanted to fight back, we are talking about the Galactic Council, she pointed out. They control thousands of warships from dozens of different species. What do we have? Maybe 50 ships that could be used in combat, and most of those are just converted cargo haulers with weapons bolted on. Commander Ryan Pierce spoke up from his position near the holographic display. Actually, we have 73 combat-capable vessels scattered across all our colonies, he corrected. And that number is growing every day because we have been building new ships in secret. He activated the projector and images of various spacecraft designs appeared floating above the table. Dr. Lisa Hayes stood up to explain what everyone was seeing. When we decoded the message from Earth, we also recovered complete technical specifications for advanced weapons and defense systems, she began. The humans who lived on Earth before the destruction knew that someday their descendants might need these tools. They left us blueprints for technology that the Galactic Council has never encountered. She highlighted one particular ship design. This is a quantum displacement drive system, she explained. It allows ships to jump across vast distances without using the standard hyperspace lanes that the Council monitors. We can appear anywhere we want without warning. Another design appeared. These are adaptive shield generators, she continued. They analyze incoming weapons fire and automatically adjust to provide maximum protection. The more someone shoots at us, the harder we become to damage. Jake watched as the colony leaders studied the displays with growing interest. What about weapons? Asked Captain Bennett. Do we have anything that can actually hurt Council ships? Lisa brought up one final design, and this one was much larger than the others. This is called the Prometheus Array, she said quietly. It is a system that disrupts the neural network links that most Council species use to coordinate their fleets. Without those links, their ships cannot work together effectively. Danny Cooper, who had been sitting quietly until now, finally joined the discussion. The array requires enormous amounts of power, he explained. We would need to link multiple capital ships together to generate enough energy, and, while the array is active, those ships would be vulnerable, because all their power would be diverted to the weapon. Samantha Cole, who represented the Titan Science Colony, raised her hand. What about allies? She asked. Surely not every species in the galaxy supports what the Council did to Earth. There must be others who would help us. Danny nodded. I have been conducting intelligence operations for the past few months, he replied. What I have learned is very interesting. The Council is not as unified as they want everyone to believe. There are several species who feel oppressed by the current leadership. The Viridians, for example, have been pushing for reforms for decades. The Kelrath have their own grievances. Even some factions within the powerful Zarathi Empire are unhappy with how things are run. Jake studied the faces around the table and saw a mixture of fear, hope, and determination. These were not professional soldiers or experienced politicians. They were ordinary people who had been forced to become leaders simply because their colonies needed them. Kyle Bennett was a mining foreman. Nina Walsh had been a farmer. Ryan Pierce was an engineer. But they were all here because they understood what was at stake. I know. I am asking you to risk everything, Jake said softly. For 3,000 years our ancestors survived by hiding. They lived in shadows and ran when discovered. They raised their children to be quiet and invisible. But I need you to understand something. Very important. He stood up and walked around the table, making eye contact with each person. This is not just about revenge for what happened to Earth. He continued. This is about making sure no other species ever suffers the same fate. The Council erased our homeworld because they feared change. How many other civilizations have they suppressed? How many have they quietly eliminated? Nina Walsh was the first to stand up. The Kepler colonies will support you, Commander, she announced firmly. Grandparents told me stories about fields of grain that stretched to the horizon under a blue sky. I want my grandchildren to see something like that. One by one, the other representatives rose from their chairs. Captain Bennett smiled despite his concerns. The Veridan miners stand with humanity, he declared. My grandfather used to say that humans were born to reach for the stars. Let us prove him right. Within an hour, every colony had pledged their support. Jake felt the enormous weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders. These people were trusting him with their lives and the lives of everyone in their colonies. He could not afford to fail them. Commander Ryan Pierce, you have 6 months to get those new ships operational, Jake ordered. I want every vessel equipped with the quantum displacement drives and adaptive shields. Lisa Hayes, you need to prioritize getting the Prometheus array ready for deployment. We will need it when the Council comes looking for us, and Danny Cooper. I need you to continue building relationships with potential allies. Find out which species might be willing to stand with us when the time comes. What about the rest of us? Asked Samantha Cole. We need crews for all these ships. Jake nodded. Every colony needs to start training people. He replied, we need pilots, engineers, gunners, communications officers, and support personnel. Start recruiting volunteers and begin training programs immediately. Kyle Bennett raised another question. What happens when the Council notices all this activity? They have intelligence networks throughout the galaxy. Eventually, they will figure out what we are doing. Let them figure it out, Jake said firmly. In fact, I think it is time we sent the Council a message of our own. The room fell silent as everyone processed what he was suggesting. You want to contact them directly? Nina Walsh asked in disbelief. Are you insane? Maybe a little. Jake admitted with a slight smile. But they need to know that humanity is not extinct. They need to know that we remember what they did. And most importantly, they need to know that we are not afraid anymore. Danny Cooper grinned. That will definitely get their attention. The meeting continued for several more hours as they discussed logistics, supply lines, and contingency plans. When the representatives finally began departing to return to their colonies, Jake remained in the command center looking out at the swirling colors of the nebula. Lisa Hayes found him there an hour later. Do you really think we can do this? She asked quietly. Take on the entire Galactic Council? I do not know. Jake admitted honestly. But I know we have to try. Earth is gone, but humanity is not. We owe it to everyone who died that day to make sure it meant something. Lisa stood beside him in comfortable silence for a moment. Helen Cross would be proud of you, she finally said. Jake thought about the message from Earth and the woman who had recorded it, knowing she would not survive. I hope so, he replied. Because we are about to do exactly what she asked, we are going to make them remember why they feared us. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous enough to hold representatives from hundreds of different species, and today it was completely full because urgent matters required immediate attention. The room was designed with different environmental zones so that beings who breathed methane could exist alongside those who needed water or different atmospheric pressures. Councillor Thexera stood at the central podium, using his 4 arms to gesture as he spoke. He was an insectoid species that towered over most other beings, and his translated voice echoed through every section of the chamber. We have received multiple reports from our patrol fleets in the Outer Rim territories, he announced. Unknown vessels have been detected in several restricted zones. These ships refuse to respond to our hailing frequencies, and they disappear before our forces can intercept them. Councillor Irin, who existed as a cloud of sentient gas contained within a transparent crystalline structure, pulsed with different colors as they spoke. Could these be pirates or perhaps raiders from the uncharted regions? Councillor Markesh was a reptilian being known for analytical thinking and careful consideration. Our intelligence suggests otherwise, he replied. These vessels demonstrate technology that we have never encountered before. Their propulsion systems leave no detectable hyperspace signatures, which should be impossible according to our current understanding of physics. The discussion continued with various counselors offering theories and suggestions, but nobody had any real answers. Then suddenly, every display screen in the massive chamber went completely dark. Security forces immediately rushed to investigate, but before they could identify the problem, all the screens flickered back to life, showing a single image. It was a human face. Jake Morrison stared out at the assembled council members with an expression that was calm but intense. His eyes seemed to look directly at each individual being, even though he was obviously broadcasting from somewhere far away. The chamber erupted into chaos as counselors recognized what they were seeing. The word human had not been spoken in official council proceedings for 3,000 years because that species was supposed to be extinct. Greetings to the Galactic Council. Jake began speaking in clear, measured tones. My name is Commander Jake Morrison, and I represent the Human Federation. I understand that many of you may not recognize that name. After all, your predecessors worked very hard to erase us from history. Security teams scrambled to trace the transmission, but their equipment showed nothing. The signal appeared to be coming from everywhere and nowhere. At the same time, 3,000 years ago, the Council made a decision, Jake continued. You decided that my species was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. You collapsed our solar system. You destroyed our homeworld. You hunted the survivors across the galaxy. The official reason given was that humanity advanced too quickly and posed a threat to galactic stability. But we both know the real truth. You were afraid. Counselor Thexara finally managed to activate his microphone. This transmission is illegal and will be traced, he declared. Whatever remains of your species will be hunted down and eliminated just as before. Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You are welcome to try, he replied. But I did not contact you to make threats or to negotiate. I contacted you simply to deliver a message. We remember what you did. We survived, despite your best efforts to destroy us. And now we are coming home. The transmission ended as suddenly as it began, leaving the council chamber in complete chaos. Counselors shouted at each other while security forces ran back and forth trying to figure out what had happened. Within hours, emergency sessions were called, and military fleets were placed on high alert. Intelligence agencies across council space began searching desperately for any sign of human activity. Meanwhile, on Sanctuary Station, Jake watched the intercepted council communications with Danny Cooper standing beside him. Well, you certainly got their attention, Danny remarked. That was the easy part, Jake replied. Now we need to be ready for what comes next. He was right to be cautious. Within a week, Council deep space sensors began detecting signs of human presence throughout the outer rim. Mining colonies on distant asteroids, agricultural settlements on remote moons, research stations hidden inside gas giants. But when Council battle fleets arrived to investigate, they found something unexpected. The human settlements were not hiding anymore. They stood their ground, protected by defensive platforms and patrol ships. In the Veridan system, Captain Kyle Bennett watched as a Council battle group emerged from hyperspace. His sensors counted 20 warships against his 3 defense platforms and handful of patrol vessels. The odds were impossible, but he had his orders. All stations, this is Captain Bennett, he broadcast on open frequencies. Hold your positions. Remember what we are fighting for. The Council fleet commander was a Zorathi admiral named Krell. His message was brief and direct. Human vessels, you are in violation of Council space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Kyle took a deep breath before responding. Admiral Krell, this system has been home to humanity for 2,000 years. He replied calmly, we are not surrendering it today. If you want it, you will have to take it. Admiral Krell did not hesitate. His fleet opened fire with energy weapons that could melt through standard armor plating, but the human defense platforms lit up with adaptive shields that absorbed and redirected the incoming fire. Their counterattack was precise and devastating. Instead of trying to destroy the Council ships, the human weapons targeted specific systems. Within minutes, 3 Council warships were disabled, with their weapons offline and engines dead but their crews completely unharmed. The human patrol ships moved across the battlefield with impossible speed. Their quantum displacement drives allowed them to appear behind enemy vessels, then disappear. Before return fire could be launched, Admiral Krell watched in complete disbelief as his superior force was systematically taken apart. What kind of technology is this, he demanded. How are they doing this? A new voice cut through the communications. That is enough, Admiral Jake Morrison said from the bridge of the Revenant. Your ships are disabled but intact. Your crews are unharmed. Take this message back to the Council. We do not want war, but we will defend ourselves. The children of Earth have come home and we are here to stay. Admiral Krell had no choice but to withdraw with his damaged fleet. As the Council ships limped away using emergency propulsion, Kyle Bennett allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Similar engagements were happening. Throughout the sector, human colonies that had hidden for millennia were now standing up and fighting back. On Sanctuary Station, Lisa Hayes analyzed the battle data. The adaptive shields performed better than expected, she reported to Jake. And the air quantum drives gave us a huge tactical advantage. But we got lucky. Krell was testing us. Next time they will come with larger fleets and better preparation. I know, Jake agreed. That is why we need to move fast. How long until the Prometheus array is ready? 3 months at minimum. Lisa replied. We need to complete the power distribution network between the capital ships. It is incredibly complex work. Danny Cooper entered the room carrying a datapad. You need to see this, he said urgently. Have been monitoring Council communication channels. 3 species have formally withdrawn from the Council in the past week. The Viridians announced they are leaving. The Kelrath Collective followed them, and several smaller species are talking about doing the same. Jake felt a surge of hope. They are standing up. That is good news. It is more than good. Danny replied. The Viridian ambassador has requested a meeting with you. They want to discuss an alliance for the first time since discovering Earth. Jake allowed himself to believe they might actually succeed. Set up the meeting, he ordered, and start spreading our technical data to the colonies. If the Council is going to come after us in force, we need every ship equipped with the new systems. Over the following weeks, more reports came in. Council forces tried to attack human settlements in 4 different systems. Each time they were repelled by defensive forces using superior technology and tactics. The galaxy was watching. Danny had arranged for the battles to be broadcast across multiple communication networks. Billions of beings on thousands of worlds were seeing humans fight, not with savage aggression, but with precision and restraint. Even when they had the advantage, human forces chose to disable rather than destroy. The Council tried to suppress the broadcasts, but the information spread too quickly. Questions were being asked on worlds throughout Council space. Why had humanity been erased? What threat did they really pose? Why was the Council so afraid of one species asking questions and advancing technology? On the bridge of his flagship, Councillor Thexara stared at reports of failed military operations and political defections. 3,000 years ago, the Council had eliminated humanity with overwhelming force. Now that same strategy was failing because the humans had prepared. They had hidden their strength, they had developed new weapons, and most importantly, they had learned patience. Send a message to all Council fleets, Thexara ordered. I want every available ship to assemble. We will crush this human uprising once and for all. His military advisors looked uncertain. Counselor, that would require mobilizing almost our entire military. One of them said carefully. It would leave many systems undefended. I do not care. Thexara snapped. Humanity must be eliminated. 3 months after the first battles in the Outer Rim, Jake Morrison found himself sitting across from Ambassador Veltara in a secure conference room aboard the Revenant. The Viridian diplomat was unlike any being Jake had encountered before, with luminescent skin that shifted colors based on mood and multiple sensory stalks that moved independently to examine the surroundings. Commander Morrison, my government has spent considerable time reviewing the historical records concerning Earth, and what we discovered troubles us deeply. Veltara began speaking through a translation device. The official Council position was that humanity represented an aggressive and expansionist threat. However, the actual data tells a very different story. Jake leaned forward with interest. What did you find? Ambassador Veltara activated a holographic display showing documents and reports that were thousands of years old. Earth only engaged in military action when directly threatened, the ambassador explained. Your species sought peaceful contact with neighboring civilizations. You offered to share technology and culture. The only crime humanity committed was advancing too quickly and asking questions that made the Council leadership uncomfortable. Beside Veltara sat Shoral, who was a representative of the Kelrath Collective. He resembled a large bipedal feline with golden fur and sharp, intelligent eyes. The Kelrath have suspected for centuries that the Council manipulates historical records to maintain control. Shoral added, Your situation proves our suspicions. They did not destroy Earth because you were dangerous. They destroyed it because you represented change, and they feared losing their power. Danny Cooper brought up additional information on the display. It gets worse, he said grimly. We have been investigating other species that mysteriously went extinct throughout Council history. At least 7 civilizations vanished under suspicious circumstances. In every case, these species were making significant technological or cultural advances right before they disappeared. Colonel Nina Walsh, who was attending via hologram from the Kepler colonies, shook her head in disbelief. So the Galactic Council is not actually a democratic organization maintaining peace, she stated. It is a control system designed to prevent any species from challenging the existing power structure. That is correct, Veltara confirmed. And many member species are tired of living under such restrictions, which is why the Viridian Confederacy officially proposes a formal alliance with humanity. Not merely military cooperation, but economic and cultural partnerships as well. Jake considered the proposal carefully. Ambassador, what you are suggesting could divide the galaxy. He said the Council will not tolerate open defiance from multiple species simultaneously. They already do not tolerate it. Shural pointed out. The question is whether we continue accepting their oppression or stand together for something better. Your people proved that resistance is possible. Your technology, your tactics, and your determination give us hope that change can happen. Dr. Lisa Hayes entered the conversation from her position at the science station. There is another important factor to consider. She said the technology that Earth left behind was not limited to weapons. We have discovered medical advances that could extend lifespans, agricultural techniques that could end food shortages, energy solutions that could power entire civilizations cleanly and efficiently. The Council suppressed all of this knowledge when they erased Earth. Then we share it freely. Jake decided. Not as leverage or as payment. We share it as a gift. We show the galaxy what humanity always intended, which was cooperation rather than domination. Over the following weeks, the alliance grew rapidly. Human engineers traveled to Viridian colonies and helped upgrade their infrastructure. Kelrath warriors trained, alongside human soldiers exchanging combat techniques and tactical knowledge. Species that had been part of the Council for thousands of years began establishing trade routes and cultural exchanges with the scattered human settlements. But the Council was far from idle. Counselor Thexara assembled the largest military fleet that had been seen in 1,000 years. 500 warships drawn from a dozen loyal species, all converging on the Outer Rim territories where humanity had established its presence. Commander Ryan Pierce burst into a strategy meeting with urgent news. They are coming, he announced. Our scout ships report that the Council fleet will reach Sanctuary Station within 2 weeks. The room fell into stunned silence. Sanctuary was the heart of humanity's coordination efforts. Nearly 1 million people lived on the station and in the surrounding installations. It was also the location of the research facilities developing the Prometheus array. We should evacuate, suggested Samantha Cole. Scatter everyone to the outer colonies where they cannot find us. No, Jake said firmly. We evacuate non-combatants, but we hold Sanctuary. If we run now, we prove the Council right. We show the entire galaxy that humanity is still afraid. 500 ships, Jake Nina Walsh reminded him. Even with our new allies, we might be able to field 200 vessels. The odds are impossible. Then we make those 200 ships count. Jake replied, Lisa, is the Prometheus array ready for deployment? Lisa hesitated before answering. We have successfully tested it at quarter power, she explained. A full activation requires linking 12 capital ships together. The energy drain would leave those vessels completely vulnerable, but the disruption effect should be massive. It could disable the neural coordination networks that most Council species use for fleet operations. Do it, Jake ordered Ryan. I need every combat-capable ship moved to Sanctuary within 10 days. Danny, coordinate with our Viridian and Kelrath allies, get every ship they can spare. And someone establish a communication channel to Admiral Krell. Admiral Krell? Danny asked in surprise. The Zerathi commander who attacked Veridan. He saw what our technology could do. Jake explained. He is a professional military officer, not a politician. Maybe he can be reasoned with. The communication was established, and Admiral Krell's scaled reptilian face appeared on the view screen. Commander Morrison Krell said neutrally, I wondered. If you would contact me, Admiral, in 2 weeks, a massive Council fleet will arrive at Sanctuary Station. Jake began. There will be a battle and many good people on both sides will die unnecessarily. It does not have to happen this way. Are you offering? Surrender, Krell asked. I am offering you a choice. Jake replied, you are a soldier. You follow orders. But eventually you must decide whether those orders are just. 3,000 years ago, the Council ordered the complete genocide of my species. Now, they are preparing to repeat that crime. Is that really the legacy you want to defend? Admiral Krell was silent for a long moment. Even if I believed your words, I am only one commander among hundreds. He finally said, I cannot stop this fleet. No, you cannot stop it. Jake agreed. But you can choose not to participate, and perhaps others will follow your example. The Zorathi admiral did not commit to anything, but he also did not refuse. After the call ended, Danny turned to Jake with doubt evident on his face. Do you really think he will stand down? He asked. I do not know, Jake admitted honestly. But we had to try. We cannot only be about fighting. We must demonstrate that there is another way forward. The next 2 weeks passed in frantic preparation. Ships arrived at Sanctuary from every human colony and from allied species throughout the sector. The 12 capital ships needed for the Prometheus array were positioned in a precise geometric formation. Defensive platforms were deployed. Weapons were tested, crews drilled constantly. On the day before the Council fleet was expected to arrive, Jake stood on an observation deck looking out at the assembled defensive forces. Lisa Hayes found him there. Are you afraid? She asked quietly. Terrified, Jake admitted. 3,000 years ago, humanity was nearly wiped out. Tomorrow we might face the same fate, but we had to stand up. We had to show the galaxy that some things are worth fighting for. Lisa stood beside him in silence for a moment. Whatever happens tomorrow, she finally said, humanity will not disappear quietly. We have made sure of that. Messages are ready to broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. The truth about Earth. The truth about the Council's crimes. Even if we lose here, the information will survive. Jake nodded. Helen Cross left us a message about making them remember why they feared humanity. He said tomorrow we do exactly that. Not through conquest or destruction, but by showing that we refuse to be erased. That we stand for truth and freedom. That we will defend ourselves and protect others who cannot protect themselves. He turned to look at Lisa. Make sure every ship captain knows the rules of engagement, he ordered. We disable enemy vessels whenever possible. We do not target life support or crew sections. We show them that humans fight with honor. Lisa smiled. Already done, Commander. As night fell over Sanctuary Station, the crews tried to rest. Tomorrow would determine whether humanity had a future in the galaxy, or whether they would face extinction once again. But this time they would not face it alone. And this time, they would not go quietly into the dark. The Council fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, like a massive wall of metal and firepower stretching across the darkness. 500 warships representing the combined military might of the Galactic Council arranged themselves in attack wings that covered the entire sector. On the bridge of the Revenant, Jake Morrison watched the enemy fleet take up positions. His own forces looked small by comparison. 73 human combat vessels supported by 140 ships, from the Viridian Kelrath and other allied species. At the center of the defensive formation, 12 human capital ships arranged in a geometric pattern that would power the Prometheus array. All ships, this is Commander Morrison, Jake broadcast across all friendly frequencies. Remember why we are here. We fight for the right to exist. We fight for truth. We fight so that no species ever suffers what happened to Earth. Hold the line and show them what humanity stands for. Counselor Thexara commanded, the Council fleet from his massive flagship. His voice boomed across all communication channels. Human forces, this is your final warning. Surrender immediately, or face complete annihilation. The Council has lost patience with your defiance. Jake took a deep breath before responding. Counselor, we have spent 3,000 years running and hiding. He replied calmly, we are finished with that. If you want to repeat the genocide you committed against Earth, then come and try. But understand that, this time the entire galaxy is watching. He was correct. Danny Cooper had arranged for the battle to be broadcast across hundreds of star systems. Billions of beings throughout Council space were witnessing this confrontation. In real time, Thexara gave the order to attack. The Council fleet surged forward with weapons charging and shields at maximum power. But before the first shots could be fired, something unexpected happened. Admiral Krell's battle group, consisting of 30 Zorathi warships, broke formation. They positioned themselves directly between the Council fleet and the human defenders, creating a protective barrier. Admiral Krell. "What are you doing?" Thexara demanded furiously. "What I should have done during our first encounter with humanity," Krell responded. "Commander Morrison spoke truth. I reviewed the historical records myself. Earth was destroyed not for aggression, but for progress. I will not participate in another genocide." Other ships began breaking formation as well, not many, perhaps 50 vessels total, but their defection threw the carefully planned assault into chaos. The precise attack formations dissolved as loyal Council ships tried to avoid colliding with the defectors. Thexara was enraged beyond reason. "All loyal forces attack the humans, and the traitors he commanded destroy them all." The battle erupted across the entire sector. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between opposing fleets. But Jake had one more card to play. "Lisa, activate the Prometheus array," he ordered. On the command ship, Dr. Lisa Hayes initiated the activation sequence. The 12 capital ships pulsed with energy as their reactors pushed to maximum output. Massive amounts of power flowed between the vessels, creating a web of energy that built to a critical point. Then, the array fired. A wave of invisible force rippled outward from the human formation, washing over the Council fleet like a tsunami. The effect was immediate and devastating. Council ships, that had been moving in perfect coordination, suddenly found their neural network links collapsing. The systems that allowed different species to communicate instantaneously and operate as a unified force simply stopped working. Captains who had been receiving constant updates and orders from Fleet Command were suddenly operating blind ships that had been moving in elegant attack patterns now drifted independently. Crews scrambled to switch to backup communication systems, but those were slower and less efficient. The human and allied forces pressed their advantage, but they followed Jake's strict rules of engagement. Instead of destroying helpless enemies, they targeted weapons systems and engines. Captain Kyle Bennett commanded a squadron of defense platforms against a Council dreadnought that outmassed his entire force. The massive warship's weapons were offline and its engines dead, leaving the crew completely vulnerable. "Sir, we can destroy that dreadnought with one," Salvo, his tactical officer, reported. "No," Kyle ordered firmly. "Target their secondary systems only. Disable them, but do not harm the crew. Let them see that we are not the monsters the Council claimed we were." Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Human forces demonstrated they possessed the capability to win decisively. They could destroy the Council fleet utterly if they chose. But instead, they showed mercy. They disabled ships rather than destroying them. They avoided targeting life support or crew compartments. They proved through their actions that humanity fought with honor. Aboard his flagship, Counselor Thexara watched his fleet crumble. Half his ships were disabled. Another quarter had defected to support the humans. The remainder were scattered and unable to coordinate effectively. The battle was lost. Counselor Jake Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. "Order your forces to stand down. This does not need to end with more death." Thexara's pride fought against reality. He had been so certain that overwhelming force would crush the human rebellion. He had not anticipated their technology. He had not expected defections from loyal species. He had not considered that mercy could be more powerful than destruction. Finally, he gave the order. "All Council forces cease fire." The shooting stopped. Damaged ships drifted in the silence. Emergency beacons activated. Rescue operations began. In the aftermath, Jake arranged for representatives from both sides to meet aboard Sanctuary Station. The conference room was crowded with beings from dozens of different species. Former enemies now forced to face each other across a negotiating table. Jake stood at the head of the table with a massive view screen behind him, showing the debris field that marked Earth's location. 3,000 years ago, the Council made a choice. He began speaking to the assembled group. You decided that fear was safer than hope. You decided that control was safer than freedom. You decided that stagnation was safer than progress. So you destroyed Earth to preserve that choice. He paused to let his words sink in, but you could not destroy humanity. We survived, scattered among the stars. We preserved our culture and our values. We waited for the day when we could return. Counselor Thexara spoke up. And now you have proven yourselves superior, he said bitterly. So what comes next? Do you take control of the council by force? No. Jake replied firmly. That would make us exactly like you. Instead, we are proposing something different. A new council built on cooperation rather than control, equal representation for all species, transparent decision-making, and most importantly, no more hidden genocides. No more species destroyed for asking questions or advancing too quickly. Ambassador Veltara of the Viridian Confederacy stood up. The Viridians support this proposal completely, she announced. We have witnessed what humanity truly represents, not domination, but collaboration, not revenge, but justice. Admiral Krell added his voice. The Zarathi Empire has questioned council methods for generations. Today's battle proved that fundamental change is necessary. We stand with humanity and with all species who desire freedom. One by one, representatives voiced their support. Even some of Thexara's former allies wavered as they considered the broadcasts that billions of citizens across the galaxy had witnessed. They had seen humans fight with honor. They had seen mercy shown to defeated enemies. They had seen courage and determination in the face of impossible odds. Over the following months, the old Galactic Council was dissolved completely. A new organization called the Assembly of Worlds was created with human representatives sitting alongside every other species. The historical records were open to public access. The truth about Earth's destruction was revealed along with information about other civilizations that had been suppressed or eliminated. But perhaps the most significant moment came when a combined expedition of human Viridian and Kelrath scientists returned to the debris field that had once been Earth's solar system. Using technology contributed by a dozen different species, they began the painstaking process of reconstruction. 5 years after the Battle of Sanctuary, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Revenant, now designated as a diplomatic vessel. On the main view screen was an image that no human had seen in 3,000 years. Earth restored. The planet was still mostly lifeless. The oceans were being seeded with microscopic organisms. The continents were bare rock slowly being covered with soil. But it existed. Humanity's homeworld lived again. It will take generations before anyone can actually live there, Lisa Hayes said, standing beside him. The ecosystems need time to develop. The atmosphere requires careful balancing. I know, Jake replied, but it is real. A monument to what we lost and what we have regained, and a reminder to every species in the galaxy that no one should ever have the power to erase another civilization. Danny Cooper joined them carrying a datapad with news. The Assembly just voted, he reported. They want to establish a galactic archive on Earth, once it is habitable. A repository of knowledge from every member species protected by representatives from all worlds. No more hidden history, no more suppressed information. Jake smiled. Earth was always meant to bring people together, he said. Maybe that is what it will become again. Not just humanity's home, but a symbol of cooperation and shared knowledge.